Homelessness has long been a critical and deeply rooted issue across the United States, with numerous cities struggling to provide sufficient shelter and resources for their unhoused populations. From the bustling streets of New York City to the sunlit avenues of Los Angeles, homelessness remains a dynamic and multifaceted crisis that affects millions of people. Despite a variety of initiatives and programs designed to alleviate the situation, the challenge of finding sustainable solutions continues to present a significant burden for many communities. In Florida, the issue is especially alarming. The state ranks third nationally in terms of its homeless population, an alarming statistic that reflects the depth of the crisis within its borders. Multiple factors have contributed to this increase, including the end of pandemic-era social support programs, the steep rise in housing costs, and a growing number of evictions. As we explore the specifics of homelessness in Florida, the reasons behind its high ranking become increasingly apparent. While Florida is widely known for its sunny beaches and thriving tourism industry, it also faces an intense and growing homelessness problem. According to the most recent data from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, approximately 30,000 individuals are currently homeless in Florida. This number has grown in recent years and now accounts for roughly 6% of the total homeless population in the country. The 2023 homelessness estimate, conducted by the Florida Department of Health, offers further insight. It revealed that more than 15,000 homeless individuals in the state were unsheltered, meaning they lived in vehicles, on the streets, or in locations not intended for human habitation. The rest found temporary refuge in emergency shelters or transitional housing programs. The report also breaks down data by demographics, exposing some troubling trends, particularly the vulnerability of young people. More than 4,637 homeless individuals in Florida were under the age of 18, emphasizing the gravity of this social issue. The 2023 point-in-time PIT count showed that around 24% of the state's homeless population were families with children. Accurately counting homeless children is particularly difficult, as they are often part of family units and may not be easily identifiable on their own. Over the years, Florida has allocated considerable resources toward addressing homelessness. In 2018, the state made a substantial budgetary commitment focused on shelter services, and that funding has continued to grow. By 2023, Florida was spending over $5.7 billion annually on homelessness, with a significant portion devoted to sheltering costs. For example, the cost to shelter a single adult for 1 year can reach around $30,000. Meanwhile, providing supportive housing for a chronically homeless individual in Central Florida can cost as much as $110,000 annually. With the homeless population rising, the need for further investment is clear. The Department of Homeless Services proposed a budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal year that aligned with this urgent need, with the overall state budget reaching $117 billion and a significant share earmarked for homelessness-related services. As of December 2022, more than 2,959 Floridians were officially experiencing homelessness. Estimating the cost of addressing homelessness in 2024 remains challenging, but projections suggest that Florida could require an additional $1 billion above the previous year's budget, bringing potential total expenditures to over $6 billion. The Florida Department of Education has also tracked the number of homeless students. During the 2021-2022 academic year, an astonishing 48,277 students were identified as homeless, a 23% increase from the prior year. While precise numbers regarding homeless undocumented immigrants are difficult to determine, it's evident that this group faces an elevated risk of housing insecurity. Limited financial resources and the inability to secure traditional rental agreements increase their vulnerability to homelessness. Demographic data reveals stark racial disparities within Florida's homeless population. Black individuals represent nearly 40% of the homeless demographic, even though they make up only 16% of the state's total population. Although Black Americans are disproportionately affected by homelessness, white individuals still form the numerical majority in many areas, especially in rural and suburban regions. According to the National Alliance to End Homelessness, White individuals make up the majority of the homeless population in over 47% of continuums of care, which are localized systems for managing homelessness support and services. The financial toll of homelessness in Florida is immense. An economic impact report by the Central Florida Commission on Homelessness found that the average daily cost of supporting a chronically homeless person living on the streets, including incarceration and hospital stays, is $84.90, totaling over $30,000 per year. Here are the 5 cities in Florida most affected by homelessness. 1. St. Petersburg. The St. Petersburg metropolitan area has one of the highest homelessness rates in the nation, with an estimated 16,000 individuals affected. Reports indicate that St. Petersburg accounts for roughly 46.3% of the homeless population in Pinellas County. Homelessness has been a persistent issue in the city for decades, and recent increases in undocumented migration have further strained local resources. According to the Migration Policy Institute, the city is home to around 85,000 undocumented immigrants. These individuals often face severe employment barriers, leading many to accept extremely low-wage jobs that fall below minimum wage. This income gap forces them into overcrowded housing or homelessness. 2. Tampa. Tampa ranks high nationally in terms of homelessness rates. A 2023 report from the National Alliance to End Homelessness estimated about 16,000 homeless individuals in Tampa, equating to 57 homeless people per 10,000 residents, well above the national average. The latest data from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development noted a nearly 2,500-person increase in Florida's homeless population from 2022 to 2023. Migration is a major contributor to this trend. A surge in undocumented border crossings led to a 240% increase in migrant encounters in Florida, based on data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Additionally, Tampa has a large Cuban community, and recent arrivals from Cuba have further diversified the population and increased strain on housing, pushing some into homelessness. 3. Jacksonville. The latest PID count in Jacksonville, conducted in January 2023, identified approximately 3,400 homeless individuals. Local media outlets, such as News 4 Jax, have confirmed these findings. Jacksonville experienced some progress, with Duval County's homeless rate dropping 9% from 2018 to 2019. However, the number of unsheltered homeless individuals remains a pressing concern. The 2023 PID count showed that 39% of Jacksonville's homeless population had no shelter on any given night, underlining the urgent need for more emergency shelters and transitional housing options. 4. Orlando. In January 2024, the PID count recorded 2,200 homeless individuals in Orlando, a 38% rise from the previous year. This total includes people staying in shelters, transitional housing, and those living on the streets. Analyzing Orlando's homeless demographics reveals that 35% of the population were families with children, reflecting the precarious circumstances of entire households. Furthermore, 21% of respondents reported disabilities and long-term homelessness lasting over a year. This data emphasizes the overlap between homelessness, disability, and chronic poverty. 5. Miami. According to the Florida Department of Health, Miami had 3,657 homeless individuals in 2023. This figure includes both sheltered and unsheltered populations. However, the actual numbers may be higher due to limitations in counting. The Miami Homeless Trust recorded a 7% rise in homelessness between 2021 and 2022. Several issues contribute to Miami's homelessness crisis. The city's high cost of living, especially regarding housing, presents a major challenge for low-income individuals. Migrants are also heavily impacted. An estimated 192,000 undocumented immigrants live in Miami, according to the Migration Policy Institute. These populations often lack access to stable housing, increasing the risk of homelessness. The topic of homeless encampment bans has become a contentious issue in Florida, mirroring broader national debates on homelessness. These bans prohibit homeless individuals from establishing camps in public areas such as sidewalks, parks, and streets. Governor Ron DeSantis has unveiled several strategies to address homelessness, including enforcing bans on public camping, establishing state tools to ensure local governments comply, and boosting funding for shelters. However, shelter occupants are required to abstain from drug use and participate in workforce development programs. Additional funding has also been allocated for mental health and substance abuse treatment. Meanwhile, organizations like the Mercy Foundation continue to play a critical role in supporting the homeless by distributing food, clothing, and providing medical care. Their work, in conjunction with new legislative efforts, aims to build a more stable and compassionate environment for individuals in need. Many cities across Florida, including Miami, Orlando, and Tampa, have enacted local ordinances banning homeless encampments. These regulations are often responses to increased homelessness and related public complaints. Supporters of such bans argue that they are essential for addressing issues tied to encampments, such as unsanitary conditions, crime, and pressure on public infrastructure. Advocates believe that dismantling these encampments encourages homeless individuals to seek help through shelters and support services. Additionally, they argue these bans protect both the unhoused and the communities they live in. While communities have a right to maintain safe and clean public spaces, the enforcement of homeless encampment bans carries serious consequences for individuals experiencing homelessness. Critics argue that such bans effectively criminalize homelessness without addressing its underlying causes, such as the lack of affordable housing, untreated mental health conditions, and substance abuse disorders. When homeless individuals are forced to vacate encampments, they often lose their few possessions, which may include critical items like identification documents and prescribed medications. These losses only deepen their vulnerability. In addition, the implementation of these bans has prompted legal battles and accusations of human rights violations. Advocates for the homeless contend that encampment bans infringe on constitutional protections, specifically, the Eighth Amendment's safeguard against cruel and unusual punishment. They argue that penalizing someone for sleeping or residing in public spaces, particularly when no reasonable shelter alternatives are available, is inherently unjust. These concerns have sparked legal disputes in various regions, with courts sometimes siding against the bans on constitutional grounds. In response to the growing controversy, some Florida cities are beginning to adopt alternative approaches, ones that seek a balance between enforcement and compassion. For example, Miami has introduced programs that provide temporary housing and access to social services as part of a broader strategy to reduce homelessness. Rather than simply displacing people, these initiatives aim to address core issues, like unemployment and lack of access to mental health care, that contribute to homelessness in the first place. The ongoing debate surrounding Florida's homeless encampment bans highlights the complexity of the issue. While the stated goal of these measures is often to enhance public safety and cleanliness, their actual impact can be damaging to those they are meant to assist. Effective solutions require a comprehensive strategy, one that includes expanded access to affordable housing, mental health support, and reintegration programs that help homeless individuals re-enter society with dignity. For many migrants, a major obstacle is securing stable and affordable housing. Miami's housing market, like many across the United States, has seen significant price increases, which place immense pressure on newcomers. Those with limited English skills or unfamiliarity with the U.S. rental system often struggle even more to find safe accommodations. As a result, many end up living in overcrowded conditions or, worse, on the streets. Under the harsh Florida sun, Mercy, an unhoused woman, felt the heat soak through her sundress, turning it into a second, damp skin. Around her, tourists bustled by, their laughter echoing cruelly against the emptiness in her stomach. Miami Beach, with its glamorous facade, hid its harsher truths. Mercy lived on the other side of that illusion, unseen and unheard. She had been homeless for 2 years, ever since a fire destroyed her small apartment and all her belongings. Her social security benefits barely covered her medication, let alone rent in a city obsessed with wealth and image. The beach, once a place of joy, had become her reluctant shelter. Each day dragged on. Mercy wandered among the tourists, clutching a cardboard sign in her hand, painted with hope. A few people offered change, others only suspicious glances. Hunger gnawed at her constantly. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in brilliant hues, a familiar melody drifted through the salty air. It came from Miguel, a wiry man with stark white hair and a weathered guitar. His voice, worn by years of hardship, carried tales of love and sorrow that mirrored her own. They shared a modest meal, scraps found and saved, a quiet companionship forged in adversity. But their fragile peace shattered one night when a group of teenagers, driven by boredom and cruelty, began harassing a young couple nearby. Despite her frailty, Mercy reacted. Years of survival had sharpened her instincts. She shouted, her voice stronger than she expected. The teens, startled by her defiance, scattered. The couple she protected, a vacationing doctor and nurse, approached her with gratitude. They didn't see her as a burden but as a person. The doctor offered medical help for her persistent cough, while the nurse gave her a blanket and a granola bar. It wasn't much, but for Mercy, it was a lifeline. Word of the incident spread. Mercy, once invisible, became a quiet hero to some, a symbol of strength in the face of despair. Tourists who once looked past her now sought her out, not with pity, but with conversation, respect, and solidarity. She became known as a sort of guardian angel, a beacon of resilience on the city's glittering yet divided shoreline. One day, a familiar face reappeared, a social worker who had previously tried to help her. This time, there was real hope. Through a veterans housing program, Mercy learned she qualified for support, thanks to a long-forgotten stint in the Navy. It opened a path back to a life she had long thought out of reach. Leaving the beach behind was bittersweet. The sand that had served as her bed now held memories, of pain, of friendship, of survival. Miami Beach, once a harsh symbol of her suffering, now stood as the threshold to a new beginning. As she walked away, Miguel's guitar played behind her, a bittersweet melody for a life both difficult and beautiful, echoing into the Florida sunset. Florida's high ranking on the national homelessness list is a sobering reminder of the challenges the state faces. The convergence of economic hardship, soaring housing costs, and the rollback of vital social safety nets has created a crisis of growing proportions. Solving this issue requires a unified and sustained effort from both government and community organizations. The path forward lies not in punitive measures, but in creating sustainable, compassionate solutions. Only through targeted investment in affordable housing, mental health services, and comprehensive support systems can Florida begin to turn the tide against this pressing humanitarian issue. If you found this video meaningful, we invite you to share your thoughts in the comment section below. Don't forget to enable notifications to stay updated with our next story. See you next time.